4 years coming up, right, there were two spots, one here, one right down here, coming up. I mean, I'd run right over it with my boat.
Problem there.
And that's 4 years
At
ago.
least 1999.
That was 4 years ago, I think for sure. So I disagree with you on the fact that nobody saw bubble.
Okay,
Just saying.
I understand, but also understand that up until late 2000s, the cavern was holding pressure and they ran sonars on it. Sonar where we can actually go down and look inside the cavern. And there was no evidence in the last sonar that there was structural failure.
That was back 2001.
The last sonar, I believe, was 2010, just before they put in the application of PNA.
It really puzzles me where those bubbles come
I'm hearing you.
I can guarantee you, that's all.
I don't doubt it.
There you go.
Last time we talked, it's, in terms of volume, it's about 89%. Unfortunately, the well into cavern 3 has collapsed at the bottom of the 7-inch casing. Texas Brine is moving in a rig to reopen that, but there's been a lot of seismic activity. You know, last time we met out here, the cavern had filled up 100 feet in 2 weeks. It's not going to surprise me at all if the cavern is mostly full now, because we've had a lot of seismic activity in the last 6 weeks. The last survey, it was 144 feet, and Mike, I think they're doing, are they doing a new survey once the 3D seismic's done?
They did the survey last week.
Okay. Okay. Out of the aquifer? You're talking at least months. I can't give you any more definitive answer than that right now. As soon as I can, I will, but it's at least going to be months.
How long has it been in the aquifer?
Well, it probably was in the aquifer before people started seeing bubbles, because it had to build up enough area where it actually start bubbling up in the bayou. And I understand you've seen bubbles out there for a lot longer. But no, that's actually one of the things, once we get to 3D seismic, we are looking exactly to answering that question, okay? But we want to know where the gas beds are now, because that was 2007. That certainly is one of the questions, and the blue ribbon panel that the governor talked about today, that's going to be one of the things we look at.
So you're saying that you think it's still being fed, the aquifer is still being fed by gas and ground?
All the data we've got, yes, says it's still, and it has been since this thing started.
So is the 45 million cubic feet you're measuring really just a measurement of the reservoir, not?
That's what's in,
Of the bowl that would hold the gas?
that's what's in the aquifer now, and you've got an unknown quantity coming in, and so it's what's out there now. As the venting progresses, and we've already seen this around some of the vent wells, it'll diminish, but overall, it's what's in the aquifer now, but there's still gas coming in through the disturbed rock zone.
And that's really why the 3D seismic combined with the modeling is really key, because the 3D seismic is going to map out those potential sources of the gas, and the modeling is going to be able to say how fractured the rock is. So we're going to be able to tie those things together and understand the potential pathways that the gas is making.
put an explosive charge in?
All of the charges are going to be released. The only ones that are left to be drilled are on the western portion, the eastern portion as I stand here on the Crosstex facility. That was the last permit to get. But all the other charges have been drilled.
All right, they've been drilled, have the charges been exploded?
All of the vibrosis points have been vibrated. Those are the ones that are going to be going up and down Highway 70 and through the Bayou Corn subdivision. And they just started taking the detonated charges today. And they started on the far western side of the 3Ds.
There'll be no explosive charges in inhabited areas.
No, of course not, of course not. And the flags that you're referring to are either one or two things. Most of the flagging that you see are batteries and an input-output box, or where we collect the data.
In the water?
Yes, yes. If they're in the water, then there's something they call marsh foams. And they're the little spikes that we were talking about in the previous meetings, and they're placed into the substrate below the water. The ones that are on dry land are the spikes that you just see the little top, and it's an octagon about the size of my fingers right here, and they're placed into the ground about 2 inches. There's usually about 6 of these foams in a circle around that battery and around that data box. So most of the flagging that you see
It's a concern to us about the gas in the aquifer. The only big wells we're seeing is the one right around the neighborhood, which need to be there. But what about around the perimeter? What about over Dow? What about over Chevron? What about over Crosstex? What about on the south side of the dome? What about further toward Pierpont? In your professional opinion, does these bubbles stop the gas? Does it stop right where you see the extent of the bubbling coming up? Or does it go further under less pressure?
To answer your question, the bubbles, and they're kind of confirmed with the shot holes that have been drilled. We've actually got data from the shot holes where they saw gas. The perimeter I've shown you on previous slides appears to be where the gas pressure is high enough to push gas to the surface, okay? Which means that it probably extends around that at lower pressure, and the pressure isn't high enough to push it to the surface.
All right, why are we seeing gas? When are we going to see net noise toward the outer perimeter? Right now, it's just right around the
I know. Right now, Texas Brine is focusing around the community because that's primary concern. One of the Amendment 5 orders is they have to actually investigate the full extent of the gas and then design a remediation system for the full extent of the gas.
Okay, that hasn't been done yet.
That has not been done yet.
Talking about relieving all this gas, burning the gas where the scent levels and all in. What is all this gas that we burn it off, what we do to the atmosphere and everything around the community, affecting the air that we breathe?
No, it's natural gas. It's like natural gas in your house, and when you burn it, essentially, the reason natural gas is such a clean energy source is essentially it burns 100%, so you get carbon dioxide and water. There's nothing else in there. We've collected, I don't know how many samples, like 99-point-some% of the gas coming out is methane, and when you burn it, you're going to get carbon dioxide and water. We sample every vent well, we sample bubble sites, we've been out sampling shot holes, so I can answer those kind of questions. We have to know what's coming out to make sure the flares are taking care of it, and right now we're okay on that.
Dr. Heacock, I just want to make a couple comments.
Before we wrap up, I just want to give a brief summary of some of the conversations that we had with the governor. Last week on Monday, myself, Vice President Henry Dupree, John Boudreaux, and our legislative delegation, Karen Sangerman and Rick Ward, met with the governor at the governor's mansion to discuss these issues. It was followed by a meeting on Wednesday with Texas Brine officials. the basis of these, brief summary of the conversations and the discussions were what threefold. The priorities of the governor were to talk about buyouts and compensation, to give people the financial resources they can to move on with their lives. We expressed and advised the governor that we thought and we knew what the residents were wanting, what they needed to try to move past this event, and that culminated in the meeting on Wednesday with Texas Brown officials, many of which were here. Secondly, we discussed about the significance of Highway 70. We implored the governor that Highway 70 is a major thoroughfare for Assumption Parish and this region. Not only does it affect our parish, it affects the whole seafood industry and the whole region on the east side of the Chapel Line. It's a viable hurricane evacuation route. And lastly, we talked about the long-term process and his commitment to making sure he sees everything through and that the state is here for the long haul, and this Blue Ribbon Commission of experts that we told him we needed to be able to make adequate decisions regarding your safety, the safety of Highway 70, and the safety of the environment. Because obviously, as I told you all, and I told him personally, we as a parish do not have the significant amount of resources in terms of money or technical expertise to answer all of these questions. The governor, I can tell you, was very versed in the situation, had been advised about the situation, and culminated in the meeting on Wednesday. When we met with Texas Brown official, he was pretty clear and pretty adamant with the group that he wanted to see some methodology or some efforts on their part to address your financial concerns regarding all the issues that you've been raising. He came today, he committed that to it, and he said he wanted to see something done, and obviously at that meeting, Texas Brown, along with their officials and CEO, was there and said they had committed to the process. But as the governor said, the proof is in the pudding. You know, hope that the process goes forward, hope that the process is fair and reasonable, and hopefully we see down the road, many of you feel that it's fair and reasonable, but we'll see. If nobody accepts the offer, then we'll see the proof is in the pudding is whether or not what takes place is what needs to take place. Secondly, they proposed a state-of-the-art GPS real-time monitoring system for Highway 70. Many of you throughout the days have been questioning whether or not it's safe to have Highway 70 open and having the children and school buses traversing and coming to high school on Highway 70. We have been relying upon the DOTD experts, and they have been doing monitoring of that roadway since the event, but it's been manual. We have requested, and the governor has given full steam ahead to the highway department to install, it's probably over $1 million system through that stretch of the highway will give us real-time monitoring. Real-time meaning if there's any dip, squeeze, or any vibrations that start occurring on that roadway, we'll know immediately. And we'll be in a position with the state police and the sheriff's department personnel there to shut the road down. We told him it was critical that we have that kind of monitoring to ensure the safety of our residents and the safety of the traveling public coming back and forth through the Fairport, Bell River, and those regions. He committed that to us. As a matter of fact, they're moving forward on that. This point in time was that told Texas Brown, basically, we're moving forward with it, whether you agree with it or not, and we're going to bill you for it anyway. And he stands ready with the Attorney General's office to see whatever he needs to have done to discuss those matters of financial reimbursement with Texas Brown. Lastly, he said